Great. Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Design Advisory Panel for October 10th. And just a reminder that this meeting is always live streamed and video recorded for the public. And so we have an agenda. Everybody received it. Any additions to that agenda from the committee? No? Okay, so can I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Angie, seconder. Harry, thanks a lot. Okay, and all in favor? Great, that's passed. And we have one set of minutes to go over this evening for September 12th, 2024. Anybody have any concerns, questions about the minutes? Okay, if they're okay, I can have a motion to accept them as presented. Nathan, seconder, Harry. Great, all in favor? Done. Great, okay. We can move on. We have one presentation this evening, and this is for property on Turner Road, and Peyton will introduce it for us. So go ahead, Peyton.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Development permit application DP 1355 is to construct a 5-story multifamily residential development with 82 rental units and a 595 square meter detached commercial building as well. The subject property is located at the intersection of Uplands Drive and Turner Road. The property is currently zoned Community Corridor, which is Core 3, and is designated as mixed-use corridor in City Plan. The property is currently forested with some informal trails. The subject property falls within Development Permit Area 8, forming character. As such, the General Development Permit Area guidelines apply. A variance is proposed to the maximum permitted building height of the multifamily residential building from 14 meters to 16.25 meters. I'm happy to take any questions following the applicant's presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thanks, Peyton. And so from the applicants, who's presenting this evening?
I'm going to introduce the team and then I will hand it over.
Okay, well, you know the routine, so go ahead and share your screen when you're ready.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to see you again. My name is Glenn Hill from DHK Architects. I have with me this evening project architect Daniel is going to be presenting, and we are working with the district group on this mixed-use project at the corner of Uplands and Turner. So Daniel, feel free to head it out.
I assume everyone can see the screen there?
Yep.
Perfect. And still can see the screen now that I made it full screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, this is to the chair, the design advisory panel presentation. This is for the development permit for 2 buildings, a 6,580 meter squared, 5-story, 82 unit apartment building. Seen in the background here of this one, down Turner Road, and a 595 meter squared commercial building with 2 CRUs. It is using the tier 1 FAR bonus. We're meeting 1, 5, and 6 of those that I believe was in the package. Not entirely sure. With an FAR of 0.94 of an allowable 0.08. We have the building height variance. I have it listed as 16.5. Peyton, we can talk about that after, maybe, but just to double check that those numbers didn't get crossed somewhere. I think you said 16.25. So we can talk about that after, I guess, maybe, if that's needed. Again, 82 units is for parking. The package did say that we needed a parking variance. After some clarification of the zoning, we have now have met the total, so we don't need a parking variance anymore. We have a total required of 115, and we have provided 120. The neighborhood is a mix of 4-story and 5-story apartments with offices and retail and malls close by. Hopefully everyone's familiar with the area along Uplands. And coming down Turner Road, it actually is the turn at Turner at the roundabout. In the area, there's Mulkey Creek that passes by the very tip of the building, or sorry, tip of the subject property, and there are local paths through the parks. There's the malls and everything around in the neighborhood, serviced by community centers and schools close by as well, and it is on a main bus line. So it's the perfect place for some extra density in the city. Just zooming in a bit, we can see Uplands just in the corner here, turning the corner, that sounds weird, turning onto Turner, and then the roundabout, and Turner also comes up here. So it's a bit confusing when talking about those streets. So I just call this the north-south Turner and east-west Turner. So off north-south Turner is the entry. It's lined up with the development across the road, which was actually a comment from a previous design panel on one of the previous projects that was on this site. So it is in that location still, and it retains its access through, I believe it's for fire access, to the development in behind, and that's through an SRW. There's a rear parking lot, and the underground parking is accessed off that. There's the main entry to the building is off Turner north-south, the more residential street. The commercial unit is accessed off the plaza, which has a ramp up from the parking lot in the back that services that. And the main road, it has the main plaza with the 2 entries. Continue. Because of the height variance, we included a shadow study at a solstice, and you can see through morning, noon, and afternoon, only the morning sun, and that's partly to do with the slope of the site as well, goes across the property line. Other than that, we've kept it as far away from the property as possible to keep it off those buildings. As for the floor plans, you can see the main entry off Turner comes through into a shared lobby area with an office for the residential staff, and there will be a path off the back that comes into this other lobby from the outdoor parking into the elevator. At the end, to activate the plaza, there's a rentable community room and a small gym as well for the residents at the building. And above that, the unit stack. In this, we have 29% 2 bedrooms, which is quite a bit, and 55 1 beds and 16 studio units, some with dens. For the CRU unit, we have it as a bank or an office space and a cafe, and both of those are accessed off the, sorry, the thing got in the way here. The plaza is accessed here. Oh, there we go. So this is the view from the corner of Uplands. As you were coming down Turner towards the corner, you can see the financial institution signage, which is what we're planning on it being. It has a raised element, same coming from Uplands down, just to kind of announce that corner. It was something we heard from staff as we really wanted to engage that corner of Uplands and have something as a feature. So we've articulated the building there. And then coming down the road and looking back at it, we have a bit of a sunken plaza as the Turner Road extends up to the top. And the financial institution entry is here, and the parking is off the back, so you can see the building there. As for materials, they are block colors, but we're planning on doing some board and batten, just to give it some visual texture, and some vertical siding just to give it some vertical texture with some wood highlights around under the soffits. The elevations. As we move to this one, you can see the entry just off the sidewalk that comes up, the bike lane and path that comes up Turner with street trees, and the vertical separations come up to block out the building, along with its colors are chosen to mimic kind of a rhythm of a residential width. So it's a two or three units per kind of stack. And then the canopy at the top just gives some visual completion to the building rather than just a straight wall up. And then from the back, you can see the main parking lot here going up to the commercial unit at the top and the entry at the bottom here. just down there. And again, the fin walls with the wood look soffits, just kind of giving it a little bit of visual interest at the end of that. Here you can see the same treatment has been given to the back, where the patio of the thing above has been thickened for a canopy for the entries, both sides, and privacy to that unit, because people will be walking directly towards it. Again, we're doing some wood look pieces around, using some warm cement panels just to mimic that wood throughout, and some textured horizontal plank on the two end pieces. I'm not sure if you can see the texture, but this end cap here gets some of that texture as well. And yeah, you can kind of see it in this one right here, that vertical texture, and somewhere else. I'm gonna pass it off to DK. Landscape, Dylan.
Great, thank you. My name is Dylan Chernoff, and I'm a principal at DK and the project landscape architect. As you may have noticed, the landscape depicted in the rendering is not completely captured the landscape design that you saw in the package, but I'll walk you through it. The new development will attempt to retain the existing street trays while upgrading the sidewalks and bike infrastructure along the frontages. To mark the corner, a feature tree is proposed at the intersection to create a neighborhood marker. The buildings will be surrounded predominantly by natural planting, with rain gardens to add visual interest and help manage the stormwater from the site. More formal planting will line the pedestrian promenade and separate the ground-oriented units from the public realm. Next slide, please. An intimate plaza is proposed between the commercial and the residential buildings. A rain garden will flow down from the corner where the feature tree is and drop down as a really nice backdrop to that feature plaza at the corner. Bleacher seating is proposed to overlook a treed plaza with movable tables and chairs for customers of the adjacent commercial unit to utilize. Vertically separated from the plaza, an outdoor amenity space is proposed at the same level as the building amenity. A paved apron will allow the interior activity to spill outside, and a hill slide with natural play elements are proposed to take advantage of the grade change there. The main entry of the building will wind through the parking lot. You could probably flip to the next slide as well, please, Daniel. It's better to show it that way.
For sure.
It'll wind up from the parking lot through a natural landscape, and it'll be flanked by a natural stream bed, a dry stream bed that will handle some of that stormwater. The parking lot is located away from the public realm with tree planting to minimize the impact on the surrounding neighborhood, and permeable paving to reduce the peak flows into the storm system. A small pond is located at the low point of the site and adjacent to the existing water course. Next slide, please. A mix of native and adaptive drought-tolerant plant material is proposed for the landscape areas. In addition to visual interest, the soft landscape areas will provide habitat, stormwater benefits, with evergreen shrubs and perennials and grasses comprising the majority of the plant palette, and this will provide seasonal interest and a variety of habitat. Look forward to hearing your comments, and I'll turn it back to Daniel to conclude our presentation.
Yep. So the last slide we have is we had the electrical contractor take a look at some lighting. So we have, but they weren't able to make it. So we have dark sky compliant lighting for the parking lot and the paths, and some of the step lights as well, all dark sky compliant to stop not only from the neighbors' properties, but also it's important to the residents of our property. We do have some spot up lights to feature trees in the plaza, just to really activate that for like crime prevention. We don't want it to be dark between these two buildings, so we really want to make sure that that area is activated at all times so that there's no kind of reason to be in there and not seen. And then with that, I think that's everything from us. So maybe I think we did it in time, hopefully. And we look forward to hearing your comments and or any questions. I can put the slides back on if need be. And Thank you.
Great, thanks, Daniel. And yeah, if you can just, stop sharing your screen,
Yeah.
great. Okay, now do any panel members have any questions of staff before we get going? Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any discussion about the commercial building having more than one story, or if there was some zoning or any other reason why that wasn't a possibility.
Thanks, Jonathan. Sorry, Maureen. Through the chair to your question, Jonathan. It wasn't a conversation that I've had with the applicant thus far, but if that was a recommendation the panel wanted to make, you would be well within your mandate to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Sorry, that's a good question, Jonathan. Just to push the point further, does the corridor zone require 2 stories minimum?
Thanks, Nathan. Through the chair to your question, the zoning permits that height, permits the building to go up to 2 stories, but it does not require the building to be 2 stories.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, well, Nathan, maybe you can start off.
Okay, yeah, sure, thanks. Yeah, it's a good project. I do have a question for the architect. Two questions, which will lead to some discussion maybe. When I see the discrepancy between the plan and the sketches and the elevations, I guess, can we get a confirmation which one's correct? So the issue, your nice fenestration and your screens and your roof parapets, the nibs coming out aren't expressed in the plan from what I can see. So am I assuming the elevations are correct? Can we make that a confirmation?
Yes, the elevations are what is the plan, and along with the 3D renderings. Yet because we only have it on one floor, we weren't going to show 12 floors. We just kept them off, not to create any kind of visual confusion on one plan versus the other.
Okay, good, thank you. And a question on this building, which I actually like your form and character on this quite well. But could you discuss a little bit more about it's a tectonic discussion about your air systems, perhaps as much as you know about them. Are we going to see that on the facades, air intakes, air exhaust, that kind of a thing, or do you have a centralized system?
Yeah, likely there will be vents, and those would be kind of color matched to the fenestration or tucked away under patios and things like that.
Okay.
So a lot of them will be I didn't get into it, but you can see from the 3D that a lot of them are inset patios that run the full length of the units. So those would be inset and part of the kind of inset patio. So you wouldn't see them out from the deck.
Okay,
as much.
And the reason I bring it up is your building has a nice simplicity to it in terms of the color palette, which I think is very good. And contrary to the staff comments, I don't think you should be. It's quite simple. The contrasts are good. I like it. Those are opportunities to think about the design. I know this is difficult to incorporate because air vents have to be separated from air intake and exhaust, that kind of stuff. But those are opportunity to actually create something on the buildings as well. So I guess as you think it through, as the mechanical gets involved, that might be something to maybe even contrast the siding, make it part of the ideas. So that would be a comment. Back to the staff comments. So I think their comments about the rooftop amenities, I don't like that thought. And once again, it becomes a tectonic thing. And these are recommendations by planners that don't understand the complexity of that suggestion. And I just point out that rooftops are the exhaust systems of the buildings. And that's not something too many planners would understand. And having rooftop amenities, is structurally complicated, is fire separation complicated, huge cost involved. And this is the exhaust air of the building. gases, the fumes. It isn't a great place to have amenity spaces as a general rule. So on all levels, I just don't think it's a good suggestion or a good idea. The rooftop massing, changing it, I think it articulates quite well, and it's very simple. And I think the idea that you have them to protect the building, they cluster the form. I think it works quite well. So I would counter those suggestions by those planners. And once again, the material palette I think is very good the way it is. There's enough contrast. Comparatively to the previous project last week or a couple weeks ago, there was a mutedness to it, but this has a nice, the tones are contrasting. I think it works quite well. I support the variance. The bank and the CRU cafe seem like they need more presence, and I get what you've done. You pop the roof up. I think that's a good strategy. I am just looking at, does the plaza seems residual almost. It might want, it's pretty close to natural grade. So I think at that level it works because the entry's there. I get all that. Somehow that building needs a little bit more presence on the corner. And whether you can work the grades out, I'm not sure how that would work. I know they relate to the building quite well, and they relate to the street where they're at, but I think it needs more presence there. I don't know what to say about that. There's a lot of buildings in town that have worked out that. Maybe it's steeper pitches, maybe it's a bit more height. I don't know, but it just looks like it's buried, and I don't think it needs to be. I do like that you snuck the window in at the end of the corridor. I'm not sure if that was Glenn's influence. I know he's but those are good moves, right? Get light into the building wherever you can. And a lot of people wouldn't. You could have crammed the stair back in the minute, get a better gross to net ratio, but by moving it out to get the light, and I think that's commendable. Okay, and that was really it. It's about that street presence in the corner. I think that needs to be addressed, and that's it. But generally, great project. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nathan. Jonathan, would you like to go?
May I just clarify one thing that came up with Peyton Singh before he starts?
Yes, go ahead.
Just the 2.5 versus 2.25 variance. If it is 2.5, are you in agreement still, Nathan?
Yes, and I suspect it's a constructability variable. I mean, you can get stung by having those things go up when it's quite an arbitrary number right now. So yes.
Okay. So from now on, can we consider it 2.5, Peyton, and we can adjust that later? Just I don't have to do this again. Okay,
sure,
thank you.
That sounds fine for now.
So that's a 2.5 meter increase on the height?
Yes.
Is what we're talking about? Okay. Just to be clear. Okay. Great. Go ahead, Jonathan.
All right. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. And yeah, I agree with Nathan. It looks like a pretty good project overall. I think it'll be a good improvement to the area. And I do have a few comments though. I like the plaza design. I think that'll be a good amenity to have, a good way to connect the residential and commercial. I think it'll function really well. So yeah, it was good to see. Seemed a lot better than some of the outdoor amenity spaces we see in other weeks. For the building, yeah, I'm wondering why not have like another story, like some residential above the commercial building. Seems like a good way to get a bit more housing on that lot to contribute to the housing stock in the city, and also just help build that sort of street wall in a mixed use corridor. I think the residential building does a good job of that, but why not have a bit more contribution to that street wall along along that corridor from the commercial building as well. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not an architect, but it seemed like having a mix of use in that building could be a benefit to the project too. I agree with the staff comment about connections for the ground floor units to the outside at grade. It's always a nice way for residents to be able to access directly from the outdoors where possible. So I think that's worth looking into. Yeah, I think the color palette, material palette of the building, it looks like a good building. I always like to see at least maybe a little more color. There's just a lot of gray, white, black, and with a little bit of wood buildings that we see every week. So, but if the architects on the panel are happy, that's okay with me. But I always like a bit of color. For the landscape, I liked the species list for the plant material. Looks like a good mix of evergreen and a good all-season interest. There wasn't like a shrub planting layout in the package, so can't really make comments on that. But so just in general, I might say some of the building elevations where the grade is a bit lower, there's a bit more exposed concrete at the bottom of the building, and I would say consider plant material along there that will help screen that a bit. Maybe you've already done that, I just can't tell without a more detailed planting plan. And for the rain garden, I was wondering if the design team could just share a bit more about, is that like the catchment area that's treating? Is it, I know in the package it mentioned some of your points for the increased density or whatever was coming from the water management, and I'm wondering like how much of the water or the parking lot drains into that?
The parking lot is mainly permeable paving. The rooftop will be what is drained into that. So Dylan, if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that, but we had civil do their rainwater calculations, and then from those we had a certain amount of storage requirement, and Dylan then worked those into the rain gardens, the 2 rain gardens. That's why there's one for the apartment building mainly running down the side towards Mulkey Creek, and then one at the top running down the back side of the bank and commercial building, cafe building.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. It really offers a lot of opportunities with the site and the way it's laid out. With the underground parking, pretty much the footprint of the building, we have the opportunity to actually have those overland flows and the opportunity to do a little soak away as we go. So when the roof water comes down, we can have these ephemeral streams, and it really adds a nice flavor to the property, where when you do have circulation routes, you either have something that parallels that route or something that you cross, and it's a gesture. So we're trying to do that in combination with the permeable paving.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I guess it's a pretty big rain garden, which is good. I didn't look at the grading plan in the most detail, but it is always nice to do some quality treatment on parking lot water where possible. So if there's ways to get more, to use the rain garden for some of the parking lot runoff, I think that would be good just for water quality going into the storm system. And then for the site furnishings for the bike rack, I couldn't quite figure out what model that was spec'd there. I sort of Googled the name and I couldn't really find which one it was, but just from the detailed drawing where it showed the elevation of the rack, I could, with that kind of angled design, I'm wondering.
Yeah, that one there is now out of date as far as the spec. It's now called the exterior low. And so it's just a nice, elegant 45-degree angle sweep, just a stainless steel rack.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. I'm not familiar with that one, but yeah, I guess sometimes with those angled ones, it's harder to like prop a bike up, the frame up against it, compared to like a more upright one. So yeah, I guess just maybe check on that and make sure. I find the ones that are a bit easier to lean the bike frame against accommodate a wider variety of types of bikes and the larger e-bikes and stuff. So just
That's a good comment. Thanks.
And yeah, I'm supportive of the variance. I think in this location, adding that extra height, and there's just a lot of commercial around here, so I don't think it's really that intrusive to existing residential or anything. So yeah, I'm fine with the variance. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. So yeah, overall, I think it's a good project. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Angie?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I don't have too many comments. Just kind of echoing what's already been said. I think it's a great project, and I think it works well with the site here. I guess one thought I had was just wondering about a bit of like the wayfinding for people who want to use those commercial spaces to distinguish the parking areas for those. Is there anything there to help kind of separate those spaces and help to guide people from the street into the parking and behind?
I lost my unmute. Sorry. There's a break in the parking lot between the two, and that's kind of where, and there would be some signage there saying commercial parking beyond this point. The visitor parking will be probably closer to the pathway entry up to the building, so that, and then everyone else will have assigned stalls. So that'll kind of negate that part of it, as well as because it's an office building, people are like that are going there to use it are either working there and know it, or they're going there specifically and will kind of know that information. We also have talked with Sybil about adding 2 short-term stalls right off the plaza for people that are just kind of running in to get coffee, like a 5-minute zone, kind of drop off, run in, get a coffee, come back out and leave. And then the other coffee, there is quite a bit of residential going in the neighborhood. So we do expect quite a few people to be walking their dogs and end up, because there's the plaza, they can get a coffee and sit right there and drink their coffee, or get it and continue walking, as well as the upgraded bike path that goes all the way up to the school. So we think there might be a little bit of walking back and forth, but the parking in the back is separated kind of by like 2 trees and then like the rest of that parking. And that's where there'll be signing saying beyond this part, commercial parking beyond this point. And that's why the bank has that kind of roof slope, so you can see where it is. And most people want to get as close to where they're going as possible, so they'll drive to the end and find parking there. Likely just out of habit, they won't be like, oh, I'm going to park way down here and walk. So just kind of by the layout of the parking lot is how that is kind of designed, and the wayfinding.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I think like you said, 5-minute pull-in spots might be helpful as well, just to get kind of oriented with the site for people who are newer to it. Yeah, okay, that's great. I was curious. It's not a very big area, but I just figured I'd check if the plaza area will also be like a permeable. It looks like it would be like a permeable surface as well, and if there's anything happening there that ties into the rain gardens or anything.
We haven't shown it as permeable at this point, and certainly a good suggestion. It is a higher point that could feed down into a lower area. That's one of the struggles we have with the parking area, that it is almost like a valley down there.
Great. Yeah, it's a tricky site for that, I bet. Yes, okay, so So yeah, I would just say maybe it's not a huge, surface area, but maybe that's something. Um, and yeah, I think there was a staff comment, which is connecting the like a path to connect the residential area with the commercial space. It looks like there might be some like the hallways connect in on the interior. So I think that will help as well. And there's maybe an exit from that amenity end into the plaza area. So I think that will help with that. So that should be fine. Yeah, I think that's everything I have. Thanks a lot.
Great, thanks, Angie. Where do we go? Harry, please go ahead.
Good evening. It's a very good looking project. I have some comments on the form and character, aligned with the city's comments on the material palette. Maybe consider adding some metal corrugated cladding to break up the use of the fiber cement material that you have on there, because there is a lot of fiber cement on there. The 7/8 of an inch cladding looks really, really good horizontally or vertically, in my opinion. The street presence from the commercial to the residential, maybe consider continuing the exposed beams and overhangs from the commercial building onto the residential building and slope the canopies to reduce the horizontal roof line of the residential structure. Because it's as it is right now, it's pretty flat. I think that was a city comment also. And on the financial building, maybe add a horizontal accent band between the windows, or a small eyebrow canopy, just to break that up a little bit. Comments on the landscaping. I walked past there the other day with the pups. There's many existing trees there, mature trees. I know that you guys are going to try to keep as many as possible, but that'd be great if you could keep a lot of those. Other than that, it looks amazing. It's a good project.
Good, thanks, Harry.
Thank you.
And Hillary?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I actually did have a question about how many of the residential units are accessible units. Because I didn't see that in the package.
None of them are designed as accessible units. If you're leading into the code, the intent is to have the building permit submitted before the March deadline.
Gotcha. Okay. I wish that some of them were, but I understand where you're coming from on that. And I guess I did have a question about the building orientation, but when you showed the shadow study, that kind of makes sense why you did it that way. As far as the amenity space, is it accessible from Turner Road? Like, is there, I wondered if there was like a ramp down to it, because it looks like two sets of stairs.
There's not an accessible path to the outdoor plaza there, but it will be accessible from the amenity room directly outside. And accessible as in like wheelchair accessible.
Okay, yeah, I think that could be problematic, especially for like the coffee shop, and from people coming off Turner Road. And I think it would make a lot of sense if.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So the plaza, the upper plaza. So because of the site grading, just sorry to cut you off there. Because of the site grading, maybe I'll just. Do you mind if I just share again really quick? I think that might be the easiest. This lower patio has a staircase that goes up to this. This set, it's a little confusing. This is level access to this plaza. This is not a stair.
I see.
Sorry. Just to clarify, this is at grade the grade of this plaza is here and comes down. There's stairs that come down here, just convenience wise. And then the ramp that comes up. The site is deceivingly steep across the entire thing. So to come up and have parking that's not too steep sideways, we ended up kind of finding this is the middle ground. So we come in and over here and then kind of build this up as a bit of a bank seating. So this area is 100% accessible and has to be by code. You have to be able to get to the street here as well. So that's the code. Just the interior here, just because the front entry is so much lower down on Turner Road, by the time you get here, there's no space for a ramp to be put in here. It's one of the reasons we don't have the path up this part as well. It just gets too tight and it would be a very steep cutoff. And then it would just be a ramp from here all the way up to here with railings every 9 meters, a flat spot and another ramp and another ramp. So using this area instead to get up this last little section is how we developed it. We did look at quite a few options through there. Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
I'm gonna stop sharing
I
again.
appreciate that that information. That does make sense, and I know what you mean. It is quite a steep grade in that area. Okay, yeah, it's nice that so many of them are 2 bedrooms. I think this is good, good infill. I support the variances. Building to step 3 of the energy code is good to see. Yeah, I'd say we get a lot of buildings in this colorway. So if there was a way to give it a bit more color, that would be cool. And as far as the financial institution space being the feature on the corner, I think it's a nice look, but it doesn't look like feature-y enough to me really. And I think the panel comments are good around that, maybe adding some visual interest or a bit more height. But maybe the visual interest just comes from the plantings and the trees that you put around there, which could be nice as well. So otherwise, yeah, thank you for your presentation, and thanks to staff and the panel for your work on this.
Great. Okay, and thank you for, oh yeah, go ahead, Nathan, you have something to say?
Yeah, just one further comment, and it relates back to Jonathan's comment about the 2-story on the corner. And I just want to remind people that the added cost of something like that is immense, and between residential and commercial, fire separation, structure, not to mention the spatial damage it does to the space below. I mean, so you've got an idea here of 1 story with an articulated roof, which creates a lovely space inside. So, and you'd lose that when you start stacking buildings. So I wouldn't recommend going that route. There are some great examples in town of buildings that have been dealt with this situation. TD Bank on Bowen, with a very similar program, took a different tectonic approach for the same problem by using trusses and exposed trusses, which needed much more height, pushed through up, and they were actually cheaper than glulam's. So that might be a strategy, a bit more light, and just to get the building up taller. It could be a simple tectonic way of constructability. Just a thought there, but definitely height on that corner would help. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Okay, so just got a few comments of my own to make. First of all, I think it's a really great siting on the property. I like the way you've put the buildings there, the massing of them on the site, and I like how you separated the CRU from the residential with that plaza. I think it's a great way to sort of activate the whole property. It's not all stuck at one end or in front or in the back. So it's created a really a kind of a great space, outdoor space that I think will be used both by residents and the people coming to the commercial buildings. I also like the 1 story. I have no problem with that at all. I think in terms of the massing of the whole, I like the way you have the smaller building on that corner, and then it rises up into the residential building. So there's a visual, almost a perspectival thing that happens if you were looking at it from one of the corners that I think works really well. But I have to agree with the panel on just something that the building, the CRU building needs a little bit more. It's sort of like this black block, a little bit boring on the outside. Now, I was realizing too, maybe some of the color of the companies that move in there, some of their standard colors might add to that. But I think there are some things that you probably do to just sort of build that up a little bit, because it is kind of a visual highlight that people are going to look to as they approach that building and then come around to the plaza. So I think that could be a little sparked up a little bit in some way. That would be good. What else? I liked where you put the bike rack on the plaza. Too often I see the bike racks sort of stuck near a door, and I always wonder how they seem to be intruding on a walkway. And I think of just people riding their bikes up there and sitting and having a coffee. You want your bikes within view, and you could just leave it there, and it's there while you have your coffee and so on. So I think it's a great spot. It doesn't seem to be intruding on the pathways or anything. So that's great too. But I think in terms of just general form and character, I think there is, I've heard a few comments tonight about, we have a lot of buildings like this in town, but I think it suits that neighborhood. It fits there. I think your wood accents will help. I don't know that it really needs much more. I think it, other than that one, the CRU unit being perked up a little bit, in my own opinion, I think it fits well with the other architecture in the area, the kind of look that's been created there. So great project. It'll be great to see it get going. I was on the panel when we had a previous version or a different proposal there, so I was actually trying to remember what did they show last time, and I couldn't remember. But anyway, this looks like a good project. So with that said, we've got a few recommendations here. I'll just go over them with the panel. So I think one very consistent one that's coming across is consider ways to give the CRU building more presence on the corner. So we'll leave that. I don't think we need to, we've given you some suggestions. I don't know that we need to be any more specific than that at this point. I think the staff comment about considering connections to the street from the ground floor residential units is probably a good one to have in here. Consider screening, using plants to screen along retaining walls. Now, I'm not sure if we have to specify the location there. Jonathan, was there a specific location?
I guess it's not really retaining wall, it's just the exposed concrete at the bottom of the building.
Oh, okay.
At the low points.
Okay, so some sort of shrub or greenery to cover that up. Consider permeable paving on the plaza. Did you want to make that as a recommendation, Angie?
Maybe that's a question for Jonathan. Do you think there's value in putting that recommendation in?
Well, I mean, if the civil has kind of figured out what the catchment needs are, like, and the existing permeable pavers and everything handles it, you don't necessarily need to add more. So maybe it's not necessary just with the amount of rainwater on the site. I'm not sure, but I guess I could just leave that to the civil and the landscape architect on the design team to figure that out.
We don't have to make it a formal recommendation. We've thrown it out there if you want to do it that way too. Is that okay, Angie, then, to take it off?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And we had one suggestion of considering using corrugated metal cladding to break up. Now, I think that was on the residential building, right, Harry? You need to turn your mic on.
Yes, correct. It would actually look good on the coffee shop too if you did like the silver cladding on there. Just to break up the monotony of the fiber cement.
Break up. Okay. We'll say the uniformity.
Cost wise, it's basically the same as fiber cement.
Cement tiles. Okay, on both buildings.
Yeah.
And you had made a suggestion about continuing some wood finish, and I didn't catch that between residential. Was it the wood finish off the CRU and put it on and consider using it on the residential?
Where you have those exposed beams and overhangs on the commercial building, carry that on into the residential building on that same side above the plaza, and have it sloped just to so you don't see the horizontal of the residential, just to break it up a little bit. So you have a sloped canopy with exposed beams.
Okay, does everybody else agree with that?
No,
Recommendation?
and I also don't agree with the metal panel on the residential building. I think the palette's the way it is, and adding more texture and more differential, more range doesn't help the situation. If anything, they could just tone up the gray, give it some liveliness, but adding, I disagree with the metal corrugation on the residential. So, sorry, Harry.
That's okay.
I'm kind of
You're the expert.
yeah, I'm not sure that it needs either one of those. I'm myself too. I'm not an architect either, but anybody else want to weigh in on this one? Is anybody else supporting Harry on this recommendation? Let's put it that way.
I'm not exactly sure where you're looking at adding a canopy. Is it along the Turner Road, the northeast Turner Road section along the residential?
Directly above the plaza.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So we have like a sloped with exposed beams.
Okay.
Canopy.
Hard to picture, but yeah, I think that perhaps there's a part near the where there's the coffee, the kind of the central piece between the financial institution. It's part of the coffee shop. There's kind of a middle section there where there's no glue lamps, so I could kind of see maybe building it out there, but it's hard. I can't really picture it on the residential without kind of drawing it out.
I'm not hearing a lot of support for that, Harry. Maybe we'll just leave that as, you could throw that out as a comment. They've heard you.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe
for sure.
they'll look at it, but I think we won't put it in as a formal.
If I might add, it isn't quite as subjective as you think. If you look at vocabulary, the residential building is atectonic vocabulary. It does not express the systems or the structure. The bank is tectonic. It is an expression of the systems. They're two different vocabularies, and mixing them can be done, but it's a very complicated thing, and they haven't. So let the designer stay with the vocabulary they've chosen, and let's not mess with it.
I think that's maybe the consensus then. And then Hillary, you had suggested something about including some adaptable units. I think that would be a great recommendation as well. You've got a beautiful location for people with mobility issues. They just have to, very easy to get to shopping and that sort of thing. And even if it's, I understand not doing an accessible unit because they're very individualized and you can't really make a building or a unit accessible, but as long as the measurements in some units are adaptable in order to be made accessible, that would be great. So I think that's a good recommendation. And so consider including some adaptable units. Okay, and I'm not hearing any objection to the height variance, so that's good. So what I have here then is 4 recommendations. Consider the ways to give the CRU building more presence on the corner. Consider connections to the street from the ground floor residential units. Consider putting plants along the exposed concrete areas of the base of the building. And also consider including some adaptable units in the building. Everybody okay with that? Mm-hmm. And so if you are, somebody make a motion to accept the proposal as presented with those 4 recommendations and support for the variance. Harry makes the motion. Nathan seconds. All in favor? Okay, great. Looks like you're done. So thank you, Daniel and Glenn and the rest of the team.
Thank you, team.
So.
Thank you for the comments.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep, all the best with your project.
Thank you.
Oh, we don't have any other business this evening, so probably have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Somebody want? Okay, Angie, okay. Seconder, and Nathan, and all in favor. Nobody ever objects to that one. Okay, thanks everybody. Good night.
Great Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.